One of the things that we really benefited from was we were in a historically bad Eastern Conference. We were in a historically bad Eastern Conference. And all through those years, we really knew the target is the Western Conference team. There was nobody in the East who was really going to be in the way.
Yeah,
Right. When people talk about the NBA in the 2000s, there's one truth almost every serious fan already knows. The Western Conference was simply on another level compared to the East. It wasn't even close most seasons.
No, I think the East has been pretty weak here the last couple of years.
The worst loss of the season, a 30-point beating in Game 3 for the Boston Celtics.
The West had more superstar talent, more elite teams fighting for titles, and way more depth from top to bottom. Night after night, that conference was a war zone. Just look across the rosters during that era. The West stacked up MVP candidates, all NBA players, and deep playoff squads year after year.
And this Cavs team with Donovan is trying to do what they're doing in a Eastern Conference that's significantly more competitive than what we had.
Meanwhile, the East often had a couple strong teams at the top, but the bottom half of the conference was filled with struggling squads trying to stay competitive. If you followed the NBA through the 2000s, saying the Eastern Conference was weaker than the West isn't disrespect. It's just reality. And this is where someone like Shannon Sharpe runs into a tough conversation. During LeBron James's prime years, especially in his peak run, the media environment around him was very protective. A lot of voices inside the league kept quiet or avoided pushing back on the narrative. But time changes things.
What is it about this man that people feel they need to take shots at him, Joe? Every chance they get, nobody passes an opportunity to take a shot at LeBron. And I just want to know why.
As LeBron moves into the later stage of his career, that tight grip on the story is slowly loosening, and more analysts are willing to talk honestly about the environment he dominated. Now let's look at the cold numbers, not opinions. From 2011 to 2018, during the stretch when LeBron reached the finals every single year out of the East, the teams with the best records in the entire NBA tell a clear story. Number 1 in winning percentage above 60%, the San Antonio Spurs; second, the Golden State Warriors; third, Oklahoma City; fourth, Miami; fifth, Houston; and sixth, the LA Clippers.
73-9. Guys, take a look at that. It still looks weird.
Yeah, that's only single digit.
In the 2-7 spot, look at the Spurs there. One of the, well, actually, the winningest number 2 seed in league history.
Joining his teammate from the Hawks at guard, Kyle Korver.
Out of those 6 elite teams, 5 were in the Western Conference. That alone tells you everything you need to know about where the real competition lived during that era.
The target is the Western Conference team. There was nobody in the East who was really going to be in the way.
Yeah.
Right. The true title contenders, the teams battling every season for dominance, were mostly out west. Think about it for a second. Golden State, OKC, the Spurs, Houston, the Clippers, these teams were knocking each other out in brutal playoff battles just to reach the finals. Meanwhile, in the East, LeBron's path often ran through players like Roy Hibbert and Kyle Lowry. Solid players, sure, but the overall level of competition simply wasn't the same. And to make this crystal clear, this isn't about attacking LeBron James. The Eastern Conference has been weaker than the West for a long time, long before his run began.
These guys are all role players. They're going to have 3 or 4, not 1, not 2, but probably 3 guys who play out of their mind.
I cut off the game midway through the second quarter en route to Cleveland, outscoring Boston 40-13. And you know what I did? I'm not ashamed to admit it. I actually ran out the house and I went and got some White Castle.
Even back in 2007, Bill Simmons famously said the conference should almost be abolished because the gap between East and West had become that wide. The imbalance was obvious even then, and the numbers from the 2000s only make that reality stand out even more. At that point in time, the Eastern Conference wasn't officially called LeBron's conference, but across the league, everyone understood what the reality was. Compared to the Western Conference, the East simply didn't stack up the same way. The West had deeper rosters, more star power, and far more teams capable of competing at the highest level.
No, I think the East has been pretty weak here the last couple of years. This year is probably one of the strongest years in terms of deeper teams. You're talking about Toronto as being better, Boston, but they lost, due to a couple of their guys. Milwaukee, they have a dynamic player on their team, but I'm not really believing in their team.
When you looked at the absolute top of the NBA standings year after year, the majority of those elite teams were coming out of the West. Now let's circle back to the point former Cavaliers executive David Griffin was making about that era. If we look at the numbers from 2011 through 2018, the difference becomes crystal clear. During that stretch, there were 65 teams that reached the 50-win mark in the NBA. Out of those 65 teams, 39 came from the Western Conference. That's not a small edge, that's a massive gap. Next up, look at teams playing at a 55-win pace during that same time period. Across the entire league, there were 39 teams hitting that level. Guess how many came from the West? 27. Again, the majority of the league's elite competition lived out west.
I believe the champion will come out of the West, but what I'm saying is the East is better because Cleveland is not as good as they were in the last couple of years.
But
I'm saying Cleveland has definitely gotten worse, but I don't think that the East has gotten that much better.
And when you raise the bar even higher, the trend becomes even clearer. Teams playing at a 60-win pace or better during that era totaled 14 across the NBA. Out of those 14 powerhouse teams, 10 were from the Western Conference. That tells you exactly where the deepest competition was. One of the major advantages of playing in the Eastern Conference during those years was the ability to pace yourself throughout the season. LeBron's teams in Cleveland and Miami often had the luxury of easing through stretches of the regular season without the same pressure teams faced in the West. Meanwhile, out in the Western Conference, the margin for error was razor thin. If a team in the West lost 3 games in a row, they could fall from the 2nd seed all the way down to the 6th seed almost overnight. The standings were packed that tightly. But in the East, a small losing streak usually didn't create the same urgency. The competition simply wasn't as crowded at the top. Because of that environment, the regular season often carried a different level of intensity. Teams in the West had to treat every stretch of games like a battle just to keep their playoff position. Meanwhile, several teams in the East, including LeBron's squads, were often focused more on preparing for the postseason than grinding for regular season dominance. Just look at LeBron's second stint with Cleveland. The win totals tell the story. In 2015, the Cavaliers won 53 games. In 2016, they won 57 games. In 2017, they finished with 51 wins, and in 2018, they ended with 50 wins. Not once during that stretch did Cleveland reach the 60-win mark. And considering the amount of talent on those rosters, that's honestly surprising. Take the 2017 Cavaliers, for example. That team only won 51 games, which many people considered one of the biggest underachieving super teams in recent NBA history. And the reason wasn't lack of talent, it was the approach to the season. From the beginning, that roster was clearly built with the postseason in mind. All season long, the message was the same. Wait until the playoffs, they'll flip the switch. And when the playoffs arrived, that's exactly what happened. Cleveland stormed through the Eastern Conference, losing just 1 game. On the way to the finals, look at the roster they had that year. LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Love, Kyle Korver, Channing Frye, Tristan Thompson, Iman Shumpert, Richard Jefferson. From top to bottom, that lineup was loaded with experience, shooting, and playoff talent. That team was stacked 1 through 9. And against the competition in the East, the road to the finals often looked like a smooth runway. In the 2017 Eastern Conference Finals, Cleveland faced the Boston Celtics. But Boston's best player, Isaiah Thomas, was injured and out by Game 3. That dramatically shifted the balance of the series. This is one of the biggest advantages teams had in the Eastern Conference during that era. They could manage their pace. Meanwhile, teams in the West were fighting through a brutal schedule every single season, just to survive the standings. Now imagine if that 2017 Cavaliers team had played in the Western Conference instead. Their playoff path would have looked completely different. In the first round, they might have faced the LA Clippers featuring Blake Griffin, Chris Paul, DeAndre Jordan, and Jamal Crawford. That hypothetical first-round matchup alone would have been tougher than several Eastern Conference series. If Cleveland somehow survived that round, the next challenge might have been the Golden State Warriors in the second round. Even if Cleveland managed a miracle upset there, the road still wouldn't get easier. Waiting in the Western Conference Finals could have been the San Antonio Spurs, who won 61 games, or the Houston Rockets, who finished with 55 wins. Every step through the Western bracket was a heavyweight fight. Long story short, the Western Conference during those years was simply deeper and more competitive. That's why David Griffin's point still resonates today. When analysts like Shannon Sharpe build the case for LeBron as the GOAT, this is one element that often gets overlooked. Now, stopping right there for a moment, it's interesting to revisit conversations from back in 2018. At that time, analysts like Skip Bayless and Tracy McGrady were discussing the state of the Eastern Conference. Their opinion back then was simple: the East had become a weak conference compared to the West. Even in that moment, Cleveland, despite showing signs of decline, was still considered the favorite to reach the finals. That alone says a lot about the overall strength of the conference. Look at the 2018 Boston Celtics, who made the Eastern Conference Finals. That team wasn't even supposed to be there. Their best player, Kyrie Irving, was injured and missed the entire postseason. Their second best player, Gordon Hayward, was out the entire season. So Boston's core in that run was second-year Jaylen Brown, rookie Jason Tatum, and Terry Rozier stepping up with nothing to lose. It was an incredible Cinderella run, but realistically, that team probably wouldn't have advanced far in the Western Conference playoffs. And if we rewind to 2017, that Celtics squad that finished as the #1 seed was widely criticized at the time. Many analysts called them one of the weakest #1 seeds in NBA history. Looking back, those criticisms weren't completely unfair. That situation also highlights something important. Cleveland was clearly pacing themselves during the regular season. Boston finishing first didn't necessarily mean they were the stronger team. When you compared the talent on the rosters, Boston's best player wouldn't even have been a top 2 option on Cleveland's lineup during that era. Now, to be fair, making 8 straight NBA Finals is still incredibly impressive. Building 2 super teams and maintaining that level of dominance for nearly a decade takes greatness. There's no denying that, but when evaluating LeBron's legacy, there's one key detail that has to be acknowledged. The Eastern Conference he dominated during those years was significantly weaker than the Western Conference. That's not disrespect. That's not trying to tear down his accomplishments. It's simply part of the full picture when comparing eras, competition levels, and the path teams had to take to reach the finals. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more deep dives like this, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And of course, I'll catch you in the next one.